a little bit because I knew for the first time my theater degree would finally do some good use. My stupid theater degree. Yes. When I asked Jenna specifically what she wanted for the wedding, she said, and I quote, "Do whatever you want. You do you." So, Jenna, Chris, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up and welcome to my wedding. All right. We stand here today in the sight of gods and men to witness the union of man and wife, Christopher Francis of the House Bogan to Jenna Lee of the House Peyton. Here in these thy holy grounds of Lakewood Country Club, we shall seal these two souls, binding them as one for all eternity. Cursed be he who seeks to tear them asunder. And now, in the presence of the seven, I shall speak the words: Father, Smith, Warrior, Mother, Maiden, Crone, Stranger. She is his, and he is hers, for this day, until the end of their days, or until winter has claimed them. The whole thing's not going to be like that, by the way. If some of you have no idea what I was talking about, I suggest that you check out the critically acclaimed home box office series Game of Thrones. Jenna and Chris are big fans of the show. They're even bigger fans of South Park. They love that show. But quite honestly, I tried to incorporate South Park into this ceremony, and I envisioned everyone walking out. So we won't be doing that. To be quite honest, beyond Game of Thrones and South Park, there's not much that I knew about Jenna and Chris as a couple. Jenna moved to Colorado about 7 years ago. We see each other, about once a year. Now, Jenna, I know a lot about you. We have a history. You're like a sister to me. We met, late 80s? Late 80s, yeah. But Chris, you're a huge mystery to me. You are not the man that I thought Jenna would choose. That sounds awful. Hold on. Let me explain. See, when Jenna was a little girl, little Jenna Puka, she was infatuated with a very specific type of man. A legendary man by the name of David Bowie. To be clear, a very specific version of David Bowie, and that is as Jareth the Goblin King from the 1986 cult classic Labyrinth. Jareth with his bright blonde feathered mullet and pants so tight that his manhood nearly received an acting credit. He could sing, he could dance, and expertly kidnap a child and trap him in a maze. This was Jenna's ideal mate. So imagine my confusion when I see you. No bright, blonde, feathered mullet. No. I just saw this dark-haired, hairy, heavily bearded, lumberjack-type dude who looked like he could snap me in half if he wanted to. One of the first nights that me and Chris hung out together, he put a shot collar around his wrist and turned it up to the highest setting, and then repeatedly pumped himself with electrical volts because it tickled. So I don't know what you have, Chris, but you have it. So like all of the greatest love stories ever told, Jenna and Chris met each other at Lowe's Home Improvement Store. I don't know why that's funny. Because if you think about it, being at a Lowe's and being in a relationship are basically the same thing. They're both confusing the first time if you've never been in one before. If you want to get the most out of it, you should be prepared to spend a little extra money. And if you have no idea what you want or need, you should probably just stay away from them. Now, they didn't start dating about 2 years later, however. Now, the story of their relationship starts out at a party that Chris's roommate was throwing at his apartment. At this party, Jenna had her phone broken by another girl at the party. Turns out this girl was acting obnoxious because Chris wasn't paying attention to her. He was paying attention to someone else. You. So Jenna and Chris got out of there, retreated to the roof, and hung out beneath the stars. And it was there that night, under the watch of Orion the Hunter, that their journey began. So Chris loved his time so much with Jenna that night that he texted her the very next day asking when he could see her again, and she replied with nothing because her phone was broken. No, she eventually replied. Jenna and Chris's very first dates were hiking at St. Mary's Glacier and also a hike through an abandoned mine at Keystone. Jenna told me that she knew Chris was the one after those first 2 dates. I missed my... Oh, there we go. She said that Chris helped her get up off her butt and take in what the outside world had to offer, to explore and do something thrilling for a change. Before Chris, Jenna told me that life in Colorado was not pleasant, but you breathed new life into her, and she was happy. You know, in my opinion, finding the one you love is like when you find your favorite movie. It's a feeling like no other. It usually starts with a friend or coworker who's like, oh my gosh, there's this movie you have to watch. I know you would love. And it's got this and this, and you're like, no, I'm good. I'm not a big fan of that genre. Besides, I have a favorite movie. It's called Labyrinth. It's got David Bowie in it. But then one day you actually do sit down and watch that movie, which you never thought you were going to watch. And after it's done, you're like, what the heck was I doing in my life for this movie? It's amazing. I love it. Every other movie that I saw before this was just a waste of my time and life. Every other movie. Yes, yeah. I want to watch this movie every day for the rest of my life. When I need a good laugh, I'll watch this movie. When I need a little romance in life, I'll watch this movie. When I need a little adventure or something that throws me, I will watch this movie. When I have had the crappiest day of my life, I just want to do nothing else but sit down and watch this movie to make me feel better. So I think you two have found your favorite movie. I also know Chris is a really big fan of the movie Jerry Maguire, because when I asked Chris the moment that he knew Jenna was the one, he responded to me via text saying, she had me at hello. Nice. That's a good one. Now, another thing that I wanted to get to know before we officially make this official is just exactly what these two do, like, for jobs, because I honestly didn't know. I'm a horrible brother. It turns out Jenna is a supervisor for services for crisis respite. Basically, she runs a crisis therapy center for patients. And Chris is what we like to call a tower hand, which means he climbs big, tall towers, repairs them, builds them, puts in antennas and wires. And that got me thinking, you, Jenna, come face to face with people who are hurting themselves, mentally ill, or who are on their last leg. And you, Chris, climb to impossible to reach heights and stare death in the face day after day. You're both ready for marriage. You get it. Marriage is tough, you guys. It'll test your patience and become infinitely more complicated day after day, or so I've been told. We're perfect, by the way. Perfect. But enough jokes. Let's get to it. You two are here today because you love each other, and it is your desire to spend the rest of your life together. And the rest of us are here today to support you because we believe in that love. If you don't believe me, watch this. If there's any of you out there who believes these two should not be wed, please keep it to yourself. We don't care. See, the room is full of love. Now remember this. This is the foundation on which you guys will build an enduring marriage. But before we make it official, it is now time for you to exchange your wedding vows. The bride and groom have elected to write their own promises to each other, because I'm assuming that they thought I would write something ridiculous, which is true. So Jenna, whenever you are ready.
Christopher, ever since I was little, I knew one day I would move to Colorado. However, when I finally did in 2010, I found myself often wanting to move back to Nebraska. I was missing something. Even surrounded by these beautiful mountains, I was missing something. On July 7th, 2012, everything changed. You and I finally talked outside of work. You got my number, eventually. And then everything became better. You reawoke my sense of wonder with Colorado. You were kind, funny, in every sense of the word, you have been my perfect partner. I'm not sure if that is something I can ever really repay, but I promise to try every day. As your wife, I promise to continue going on adventures with you. I promise to support you in your interests, even when that means you spending 8 hours in the garage when you told me to. To support you in your work, even when that means losing you to the frozen wasteland of Wyoming for 3 months at a time. And in our home. I promise you honesty, kindness, patience, and communication. I promise to love you through the bad days and the good, and to be your partner in all things. You have given me happiness, beauty, and love of life, and I will make sure you know this is what you've given me each day.
I gotta pull up Google. Mine's not gonna be nearly as exciting as that. That was beautiful. I love you not only for what you are, but for what you make me. You're the best possible man I can be. Without you, I am in darkness, and with you, I see only light. You are my true love, and I vow to make you coffee in the morning when you're tired. I vow to make you food when you're hangry. So you need that sometimes. I vow to be there for you all the time. Whenever you need me, I'll be there. I love you.
Okay, this next part is very important. It's called the expression of intent. It's like the only part that's like legally mandated, so I gotta do this. So to make it easy, this is the part where you say I do. It's really easy. I'm gonna make it super simple. Jenna, based on everything adorable that Chris just said, do you take Chris to be your husband?
I do.
Chris, based on everything that Jenna just said, which was also adorable, do you take Jenna to be your wife?
I do.
Before the bride and groom exchange their rings, we will first commemorate their union with the time-honored tradition of pouring tiny little rocks into a very pretty box. The sand ceremony. For those of you who don't know, the sand ceremony represents the coming together of two people or two families into one new family. And just as the grains of sand can never be separated and poured again into the individual containers, so will your marriage be. So bride and groom, today you join your separate lives together and become one. In other words, Chris, once that sand is poured in with Jenna's, she owns you. And Jenna, she owns you. And if you leave this at your place and it tips over and Chewy starts to eat it, he owns both of you. That's how it works. You two can begin. So Jenna and Chris chose the song Falling Slowly for their sand ceremony. It's a lovely song from a modern-day musical called Once, if you've never seen it. It's about these two individuals who write, rehearse, and record songs that tell their love story. It's a beautiful film. At the end of the movie, they break up, but we're not going to talk about that. Never-ending love. That is why we are here today. In just a moment, the bride and groom will solidify their promises to each other through an exchange of rings. Wedding rings are an outward and visible sign of your commitment to each other. The unbroken circle of love signifies to others, hands off the merchandise, and back off. So these circles are designed without an ending, which means they speak of eternity. Rings. So Jenna, have you put the ring on Chris's finger? And repeat after me as you're doing so. Chris, I give you this ring.
Chris, I give you this ring.
As a solemn token.
As a solemn token.
And pledge as a sign.
And pledge as a sign.
Of my love and devotion.
Of my love and devotion.
I will cherish you above all others.
I will cherish you above all others.
In times of joy.
In times of joy.
And in times of sorrow.
And in times of sorrow.
I will stand beside you.
I will stand beside you.
As long as we both shall live.
As long as we both shall live.
Good job. All right, Chris, as you're placing the ring on Jenna's finger, repeat after me. Jenna, I give you this ring.
Jenna, I give you this ring.
As a solemn token.
As a solemn token.
And pledge as a sign.
And pledge as a sign.
Of my love and devotion.
Of my love and devotion.
I will cherish you above all others.
I will cherish you above all others.
In times of joy.
In times of joy.
And in times of sorrow.
And in times of sorrow.
I will stand beside you
I will stand beside you
as long as we both shall live.
as long as we both shall live.
So Jenna, Chris, today is a validation that you two have found your soulmate. Today is validation that amidst all your flaws and mistakes you have made in life, the person across from you has chosen you, and only you. Today is validation that there is someone out there in the universe whose heart beats at the same frequency as yours, and you have found them, and now you get to keep them forever. And that is worth celebrating. So, by the power invested in me through AmericanMarriageMinistries.com and the state of Colorado, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you for the first time Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Bogan.